everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. Today we're going to be talking about veterans and estate planning. And my name is Todd Sivia, and I own Sivia Law Firm. We are located in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and we assist people through life's transitions. And we always like to help people with their estate planning needs and business transactions, business litigation, and we currently have 6 attorneys on staff, willing to help you out with anything that you may need. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is veterans, and so we're gonna quickly go through the agenda. The agenda today is it decided to move on me. So meeting minutes today is I'm going to do a quick introduction and tell you the kind of the ground rules with regards to this webinar. Next, we're going to do the presentation. Hopefully we don't take this amount of time, but anytime you give an attorney the ability to speak, sometimes we like to be long-winded and go into a whole bunch of questions, or longer than our presentation. But we are very mindful of your time, and we're going to leave about 20 to 25 minutes for you to ask questions. So with our introduction, again, we love helping people with any kind of issues that may have, but veterans is kind of one of those special spots in my heart. I had 2 grandfathers that both served during wartime. One served in World War II. He was a Marine. Very interesting stories about him. And then my second grandfather, which I was able to help, and which really started my passion for veterans estate planning. And that second grandfather served during Korea. And that'll be important with regards to this presentation today. Service time, when they served, how did they serve, whether they were deployed, whether they're not deployed, and so on and so forth. So without much more ado, we'll get started on the presentation. So there is a benefit. There's a lot of benefits that are available to veterans, but one of them that is not as talked about is a benefit called aid and attendance. And this benefit is handled by the Veterans Administration, and there's different programs within it. There's a special monthly pension, housebound, and then aid and attendance. So, and basically it's a benefit for anybody over the age of 65 and some other terms. But if a veteran or the surviving spouse of a veteran has served at least 90 days or more on active duty with 1 day beginning or ending during a period of war, they may be eligible for VA non-service connected disability pension. So let's break that down. So if the veteran themselves, so say you have a veteran, they were deployed, for example, my grandfather. My grandfather was deployed as a veteran, and he served in Korea. He was deployed, he went all over to Korea, and we go look at his service record. He was eligible for aid and attendance. Also, his spouse was eligible because of the veteran, and this is definitely important because it's not just the veteran, it's also the surviving spouse. So they had to serve 1 day, beginning or ending during a period of war. So, for example, if you started serving in 1955, and you served 2 years from 55 to 57, you, based upon Congress, the years in the 55s, you would qualify because that was during a period of active war called Korean War conflict. And it doesn't have to be war per se, it could be a military action. But there's clearly defined specific areas. Now, anybody that is served during Persian Gulf or current crises, it does change to 2 years. But in 2009, and these numbers have definitely increased. But the pension was $13,000 a year if they needed that pension. It's $18,000 if they had a wife or they had a spouse that was dependent upon them. So, and then you look at aid and attendance, it goes up to $27,000. So why is that so beneficial? Well, if we know anything about, pensions and nursing home costs on average between $6,500 to $8,500 a month, and we can't survive on, there's no way all of our money is going to last if we don't have some assistance. And if you are a veteran, you qualify for this benefit. And we'll talk a little bit further on some of the qualifications and some of the pros and cons to it. But that benefit of aid and attendance, $27,000 per year, is huge. So that would cover at least 3 to 4 months worth of nursing home coverage just for that service. So, all right. So why is aid and attendance benefit so beneficial? It helps seniors pay for care privately and in-home or in an assisted living or in a nursing home. So if you have or if you have a family member or someone that wants to live in their house in private, taking care of themselves, but they can't afford in-home health care. They can't afford to go to an assisted living facility. They can't afford to go to a nursing home, or we're worried about stretching out those benefits. This benefit helps those seniors pay for this care privately. There's a big difference between private pay and Medicaid. And we'll talk a little bit about Medicaid, but there's a big difference in care, big difference in availability of assistance between those two categories. Frees up cash flow. So, not everybody has a long-term care policy to take care of themselves. So it doesn't always, not everybody has it, but if you do, that's even better blessing. But if you haven't planned for that, or you don't have that, using aid and attendance as a way to pay for those in-home healthcare or assisted living or nursing home care needs is definitely a helpful. Helps home care, assisted living, and private pay clients for longer periods of time. So if I've got $28,000 a year that's coming in, I can stay in assisted living and privately pay for a longer, substantially longer period of time. Whereas if I had to come up with that money will dwindle very fast. So using this as a mechanism is very important. In combination with, and this could be a strategy for multiple things. It doesn't have to be just one item. It can cover a lot of different long-term care services. So who qualifies? So veterans and or their surviving spouse. So if you're a veteran and you need this assistance, you qualify, as long as you fit within the wartime period. Your surviving spouse also gets that, who require regular attendance of a caregiver to assist with the daily ADLs. So what is an ADL? So actions of daily living. It's important for you to know this because if you're doing anything assisting people, these are the 5 that they're really looking at. Eating, and you have to have 2 out of these 5 that you need assistance with. So eating, so you need somebody to assist you eating, need assistance bathing, dressing, transferring yourself. So an example would be getting up and down to go to the bathroom, getting up and down to either go to sleep or getting out of a chair. You need assistance with that. That's important. And taking care of needs of nature. So if you have problems going to the bathroom, problems with any of those things, you have colostomy bags or bladder infections or anything else like that, where you need some additional assistance. Those are, you have 2 out of the 5, you qualify. Okay. So let's also, so who also qualifies? Anybody that's blind, or if you are you are in a nursing home because of mental or physical incapacity. If you need some kind of assisted care in an assisted living facility, also qualifies. So you may, there's different forms of nursing homes. So there's senior living, and then additional care, and then also nursing homes. So just depends on what it is. But this benefit is, again, this is the most overlooked by many families with veterans or surviving spouses who need additional cash flow. Most attorneys are not familiar with the VA rules. They're not familiar with these benefits. So having somebody that knows about these is going to be very, very important. You need to look for an attorney that is VA accredited attorney. So that's important when you're looking for this. So again, we're going to go over this again. Who qualifies? Any veteran must have served 1 day during an active war. Doesn't always mean you have to be shipped overseas. You don't have to see live action. You can be port bound, working at a base in the United States. That's all part and parcel, and that's perfectly fine. You can be a surviving spouse, but you must have been married to the veteran when they passed. So you can't be divorced. So typically divorces don't count. They must have a doctor's order insisting that they need aid and attendance of a caregiver every day. So one of the requirements is we generally have to have a doctor's note, and we'll have doctors to participate in getting this benefit. Next, they must have less than $129,000 in assets, even less if they're applying as a single person, not including their home. Okay, it doesn't include their home. It doesn't include vehicles. It also doesn't include any kind of funeral trust or prepaid funeral. So, you know, and people usually say, okay, all right, I got more assets than that. You know, I've got IRAs, I got CDs, I got this asset, I got that asset. Just because you have those assets or you're above this $129,000 limit, please don't stop there. Please come and talk to somebody that knows about, you know, that knows about VA planning, because with some simple planning, that we can reach that $129,000 limit without too much trouble. Homes are, as long as the home it stays as a home, you qualify. If you sell that home and convert it to cash, we start looking at the $129,000 limit. So please understand, there is some planning that goes along with that limit, but $129,000 is the limit. IRAs and CDs are also included as assets. Same thing with life insurance policies, whole life insurance policies, and annuity. You know, certain types of annuities are also included. It just depends upon the circumstances, and we always, you know, can go through that with anybody that has questions about, you know, do my assets qualify? How do I get my assets to qualify for those benefits? Some other things with qualifications. You must have an honorable discharge or general discharge under honorable conditions. So if you were discharged because of any condition other than honorable discharge, then you committed some military action or you did something that wasn't right, generally you don't qualify for these benefits. You must be honorable discharge or general discharge under honorable conditions. An example of general discharge under honorable conditions: if you served during wartime and they discharged you for medical purposes, that would be general discharge under honorable conditions. So it wasn't because of your fault or fault of yours, you got injured, whatever. So can you choose where to live as long as it is credible? You do get to choose. Instead of posing a question statement, sorry. You do get to choose where you live as long as it's a credible facility or a community or home care company. So you may not qualify if there is state assistance. So if you are on Medicaid, your assets are below $2,000, you're at a point where it does not behoove you to file for aid and attendance. It doesn't provide you anything in any additional assistance. So if you're at a point where you're Medicaid eligible, this is not you don't have to go to that level for assistance, but there may be other things that you may need some assistance from the VA about. So again, how much is the benefit? This benefit is $1,644 per month for a wartime veteran, or $1,056 per month for a surviving spouse, or if you as a couple need it, it is $1,949 per month for a qualifying couple. And I believe these numbers are possibly a year or two old, so I believe the benefit is actually better than this. Because of the aid and assistance special pensions, they will not have, a person will not have to live their days in a Medicaid or a VA nursing home. Anything with Medicaid, you're getting cheap nursing home care. You may not get always the best care. You may not get the best options for care. And same thing with VA nursing home. You may not always get the best care, even though these individuals need that care and should and deserve that care. And that's why I love this benefit, because I'm helping the guys that served their time, did what they did the most honorable thing, which is serving our military, and I'm so appreciative of that. So instead of living in an assisted living, where people are able to have an affordable option, and that's so important. So let's talk about an example. So a 76-year-old with $40,000 in savings may be a good candidate for VA assistance, but a 92-year-old man may not be considered to have enough money due to the fact that there is a life expectancy issue. So the VA doesn't look at life expectancy of an individual. Same thing goes with a 76 to 74-year-old. They do look at certain limits, but for example, an 76 and a 74-year-old married couple has $80,000. They may think that they're, based upon your life expectancy, you may have too much in funds, based upon if you're in 80s I apologize, if you're in your 80s or 90s, you may have too much funds. So you might want to consider a possibility of denial due to high savings. And there's different rules with regards to this. And working through this process is what attorneys that handle VA assistance would be able to assist you with. So, all right. So, moving assets to qualify. A lot of people are like, well, okay, well, if there is this hard line rule of $120,000 or $129,000 limit, we're going to give all my money to somebody else. I'm going to give all my assets, and I'm going to get myself down to the $129,000. Problem is, there is a 3-year look back. Now, up until 2018, there was no look back. There's 0 look back. So if you came into me in say August of 2018, I could take all your assets, throw it into what's called an irrevocable trust, and then the next day apply for VA. Fortunately, the rules changed in 2018 so that there is now what's called a 3-year look back. So they're going to look back 3 years prior and say, what assets did you give away? If I gave away all my assets away within that 3-year period of time, they will penalize you and they will disqualify you for benefits. So that's why it's so important for us to talk to seniors at an earlier stage to start talking about and figuring out what that, how do we gift those items before that 3-year look back really starts coming in. And these look back rules, we always look at it as, okay, if I got to look back and I'm looking back, what's my pool of, have I looked at my crystal ball and planned for it? The best planning is early discussion. So the earlier, I start talking to people about VA and Medicaid planning as soon as they get close to age 65, because at that point on, I needed to start talking to people about that, about these rules that are coming down the pipe. Medicaid is so if we get into Medicaid, now this webinar is not about Medicaid, but there is a 5-year look back. So we want to make sure that we are looking at that, knowing that so we want to look at 5 years. So if I have any person that is looking at a Medicaid situation, they're going to be looking at it as 5 years. So what does that mean? Basically, if we look at penalties within Medicaid, Medicaid won't pay. So if I gifted $100,000, actually let's use an easier number. If I give away $60,000 and my cost for the nursing home is $6,000 a month, and I had given away within that 5-year look back period, I gave away $60,000. Because I gave away that $60,000, when I apply for Medicaid, they will penalize me and say, I hereby give you are penalized for the next 10 months, meaning that we will not pay for your care for the next 10 months, even though you applied and you got your stuff down to $2,000. So you got $2,000 to your name. And now you've got to figure out, how do I come up with the $60,000 that I gave away 5 years ago? So that is called a look back period penalty. And we start getting into lots of problems, and we want to make sure that we do this right. Lots and lots of problems can occur when an untrained financial advisor or untrained individual starts talking about annuities, talking about all these different things that may not qualify a person and ends up disqualifying a veteran for Medicaid or VA benefits. So gotta be careful. We don't want to be transferring our house out of the veteran's name. We don't want to be transferring assets to friends and family. Don't want to be doing all that stuff, because we've got to deal with this look back period. If I have the assets confined and taken care of, then we're okay. But anything else, we just have to be very, very careful. So, all right. So what's the process? Individuals in our office will do a generalized intake, but in order to qualify for to apply for the benefits, you need your most recent tax return, Social Security numbers for yourself, the qualifying dependents, and a form called the DD 214. That is your what's called the discharge papers for the military. And if you don't have it, contact our office. We should be able to assist you with getting the DD 214. It does take depending upon when you served, it depends upon whether or not we can get it very quickly. Sometimes you have to go to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. to get it, because in the Veterans Administration, the records in St. Louis did burn down. I forget what year that was, but a lot of the veterans' records were destroyed. So they do have a way of getting those records, but it is a little bit harder. The other thing you'll need is your account numbers for any kind of current health insurance you already have, like Medicare, private insurance, or insurance from your employer. And then we need to know your medical expenses. And one of the things we didn't talk about is making sure that your cost of care exceeds your income. So we'll need to know all sources of your income. But with that, this is very kind of a basic analysis of this of VA. We definitely have if you have questions, please ask those questions to me. Don't hesitate to ask those questions, because we want to make sure we're able to work through. There's never a bad question. So, all right. We did get a question that came in. What if the assets are placed in a trust? Very good question. If the assets are placed in a trust, question is, what kind of trust is it? If it's a trust and you put the assets into a trust within the outside of the 3-year look back, then those assets won't be counted. That's important. One of the things that we start looking at is houses. Houses are exempt, but a lot of times when we start moving things around, first thing family wants to do when the person moves out is either rent it out or sell the home. And when you move the assets out of the trust, or you convert the asset from an asset of a house to an asset to cash, that will play with our numbers, because we have to hit that 129 number. So that 120, you exceed that 129 number, and then you're disqualified for benefits. So if you sell the house, you've got 129,000. You sell the house for $100,000. You now have $229,000, and you just disqualified yourself for benefits. If we do it ahead of time, we know, hey, we start seeing some conditions of aging. We put the assets into a trust, into an irrevocable trust. So once you put it into an irrevocable trust, it is no longer in the person's name, and they can't touch it. So we put things like a certain amount of cash, a certain amount of, or definitely the house and things like that, into the trust. And as long as it's an irrevocable trust, then that qualifies them for those benefits. But if it's a revocable trust, that means it is still in their name and they still have access to it. And that is dangerous territory. Trusts are great. Don't walk out of here or listen to this presentation and not think that it's not important for trusts, but we So trusts are very, very important, but depends upon what type of trust. If it's a revocable trust, it still has access to it. If it's a irrevocable trust, it's totally different. Any other questions? All right. Let's see. We've got another question coming in. Veterans, so the question that came in was, does wartime, when does Vietnam War start, and when does it end? Technically, wartime started and this is always surprises a lot of people, but the wartime for Vietnam actually starts in 1959. And there's a clear date with regards to that. But in 1959 is when they started sending individuals to start investigating what's going on in the Vietnam War. And people were deployed between 59 and 1963. So if you served during wartime between 1959 and 1963, and you were physically in country, you qualify. But if there was not an act or declaration of war, or even though Vietnam is not a war, it's a military action, but the actual declaration was in 1963 when Johnson called for the draft and continued the draft and started drafting more people and deploying people overseas in the act of war. And then Vietnam technically ended at the fall of Saigon, which is 1975. So there's a large swath of people that may qualify. Again, you don't have to serve in the military with regards to, you have to serve in the military, but you do not have to be deployed. National Guard service is kind of hit and miss on whether or not you would serve. If you were active duty versus inactive duty, there's a question with regards to that. But yeah. Well, hopefully this information has been helpful and useful for you, and we really appreciate all that you guys do. Hopefully we've provided information for you to help you assist you in making these decisions. You're welcome to contact our Edwardsville office. We do have 3 locations. One is in East Alton, Illinois, near the Bethalto Airport. We also have a St. Louis location as well. But you can call our main number, which is 618-659-4499, to set up a time. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We really appreciate, especially the veterans out there, we really appreciate all your service. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you guys again. Thanks.